Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well today. So, this is a big one. A new proposal in the Senate could raise Social Security benefits by $200 per month for millions of Americans. Yeah, you heard that right. $200 more each month. That's not just some random number. It could make a real difference for seniors, veterans, and folks on disability who are struggling with the rising cost of groceries, rent, and healthcare. And what's interesting is this increase isn't part of the regular COLA raise. It's a separate emergency plan meant to give people immediate relief from inflation. So if you've been feeling like that 2.8% COLA for 2026 didn't really stretch far enough, this bill might catch your attention. Stick around because what's being proposed here could tell us a lot about where Social Security is heading next and how it might impact you or someone you love. Before we get started, I'd love to hear from you. Do you think a $200 increase would make a meaningful difference each month? Or do you feel it's not enough given how prices have gone up? Let me know in the comments below. So, here's what's happening. A group of Senate Democrats, including Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, and Ron Wyden, have introduced what they're calling the Social Security Emergency Inflation Relief Act. The goal is pretty straightforward. Temporarily boost Social Security, SSI, veterans benefits, and even railroad retirement payments by $200 per month for 6 months. They're framing it as an emergency lifeline for folks who've been hit hardest by inflation. Now, you might be wondering why now. Well, inflation may not be soaring like it was a couple of years ago, but the cost of essentials hasn't really come down. Groceries, rent, utilities, and medical costs, they've all stayed high. And that's where this proposal comes in. The lawmakers say the 2.8% COLA increase for 2026, which averages out to just about $56 more per month, simply doesn't keep pace with what people are actually paying out of pocket. And, that's something I hear a lot from viewers in the comments. People saying, every time I go to the grocery store, it feels like prices are higher or my check just doesn't stretch like it used to. And they're right. Inflation may have slowed a bit, but prices rarely go back down. Once your rent or your insurance premium goes up, it tends to stay there. Senator Warren described this bill as an emergency lifeline. She's pointing out that with new tariffs and higher healthcare costs under President Trump's trade policies, many seniors are seeing their expenses rise faster than their checks, and she's not alone in that. Senator Schumer has said that seniors are being forced into difficult choices, skipping prescriptions, cutting meals, or even delaying doctor visits because their benefits just aren't keeping up. Now, whether you agree or disagree with their framing, it's clear the debate here runs deeper than just one number. It's really about how we define fairness and security for retirees. Think about it. If you've worked your whole life, paid into Social Security, and now you're struggling just to cover basic bills, it can feel like the system is leaving you behind. The proposed $200 increase would apply to several groups, not just traditional Social Security recipients. It would also include supplemental security income, veterans receiving disability or pension payments, and even retired railroad workers. Altogether, that's roughly 71 million Social Security beneficiaries and another 7.5 million people on SSI. So, yeah, we're talking about a pretty big reach. And let's be honest, for many people, $200 might not sound life-changing, but for someone living on a fixed income of around $1,200 a month, that's a big difference. That could cover a week's worth of groceries, an extra prescription, or help keep the lights on through the month. Take someone like Barbara, a retired worker from Ohio. She gets around $1,280 a month in benefits. With grocery prices up nearly 12% over the past 2 years, she said every trip to the store feels like a game of what she has to put back. That extra $200 could let her shop without cutting corners. It's not about luxury, it's about breathing room. And then there are veterans like James, a Vietnam veteran living on disability payments. He said his medications, utilities, and co-pays have all gone up and he feels like he's being left behind. He put it simply, "This bill gives me hope that someone still sees us." Stories like those really put this in perspective because at the end of the day, policy debates are one thing, but the lived experience of seniors trying to stretch a fixed check in a high-cost economy is something you can feel. Now, let's talk about the history behind all this, because it helps explain why so many lawmakers are pushing for emergency action. Since 1975, Social Security has automatically adjusted benefits each year through what's called the Cost of Living Adjustment, or COLA. The goal was to make sure benefits keep up with inflation. But here's the catch. COLAs are tied to something called the CPIW, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. And here's where many experts argue the problem lies. The CPIW reflects the spending habits of working adults, not retirees. Seniors tend to spend more on things like healthcare, prescriptions, and utilities, categories that often rise faster than general inflation. So, when benefits go up 2.8%, it may sound fair on paper, but in real life, those increases don't match what retirees are actually facing. There's even another proposal called the Boosting Benefits and COLAs for Seniors Act that would switch the calculation to something called the CPIE, which tracks spending specifically for the elderly. Analysts say it would raise COLAs slightly each year, maybe by about 0.2 percentage points on average. It wouldn't fix everything, but it could help. Of course, it would also increase long-term costs for the Social Security Trust Fund, which is already facing funding challenges. And that's where the tension really lies. On one hand, you've got the urgent need to help people right now, especially with prices still high. On the other, there's concern about how this affects the long-term health of Social Security. Some fiscal conservatives are warning that without offsets or new funding sources, a $200 increase could accelerate the depletion of the trust fund. Right now, projections show that could happen by the mid-2030s if no changes are made. There's also debate about inflation itself. Some economists argue that injecting billions of extra dollars into the economy through direct payments could in theory raise prices further. But others point out that most seniors would spend that money on necessities: food, housing, healthcare, which doesn't drive inflation in the same way that speculative spending might. And here's something interesting from the Trump administration's point of view. Officials say the 2.8% COLA increase is fair and follows the law as written. They argue that the COLA process is automated based on real economic data and reflects the best balance between inflation and fiscal responsibility. The administration's broader argument is that its trade policies and budget reforms are short-term sacrifices for long-term economic stability and national independence. So you can see why this bill has stirred up such a wide range of reactions. Supporters see it as compassion and practicality, immediate help for people who need it most. Opponents see it as short-sighted and potentially harmful to the program's long-term sustainability. And somewhere in the middle are the millions of Americans just trying to make ends meet, wondering if any of these decisions will really improve their lives. Now, politically, the bill faces an uphill battle. Democrats are largely united behind it, calling it a time-bound measure that simply gives people breathing room. But it's going to take at least some Republican support to move forward. With election season coming up, some lawmakers may not want to appear opposed to helping seniors, even temporarily. So the political math gets complicated fast. Still, one thing's for sure. This proposal has reignited a national conversation about what Social Security should be in the years ahead. Should it be purely a safety net or a system that actually keeps pace with modern living costs? Should COLAs be adjusted differently? And how do we balance compassion today with solvency tomorrow? What do you think? Should Congress approve this $200 monthly increase, even if it's temporary? Or should lawmakers focus instead on a permanent fix to how benefits are calculated? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective always helps shape these discussions. So take care of yourself, stay informed, and as always, thank you for being part of this community.